Hello everybody, it's JohnnyFerno talking. Welcome back to the late-ish Halloween reactions. Yes, Halloween is all over and all that good stuff. It's November now. But recently I came, or like a few days ago and yesterday, I came to know a couple of things that were coming out. Things I wanted to see, and Halloween stuff. And the first one we're going to see is one partially requested by the maker themselves. It is the Blueblood Pets, a GRIMDARK MLP fanfic reading by Scribbler. Now, before we start, I just wanted to quickly say that I normally don't watch or listen to MLP GRIMDARK stories because, well, I always find it a bit like weird and off-putting when I see the show itself, and it's like, it's so lively, colorful, and happy, all that stuff. It has its things, of course, but it's just so jarring to then listen to something like a GRIMDARK story. That is partially one of the reasons why that Smile HD is one of the few videos I will never ever watch on this channel, because frankly, I heavily dislike it. But with all of that aside, I think that I should try and watch something new. So with all of that said, my dear friends, if you're all ready to begin, let us sit down and watch the first of a good number of Halloween reactions. Be late. Blueblood's Pets by the Tobacconist and Scribbler. 3, 2, 1, go. In a month of macabre. I really love how the fanfic community has, like the fanfic reader community, has these special months, like the month of macabre, then there's like month of love. I don't know if there's anything else. Anyway, let's focus on the story. Let's see what is up in this shizzle. Okay, I'll stop. Manizzle. Good start. Very good start.
Octavia woke to the sound of water dripping in the distance. She
Chaotic?
struggled upright and looked around the room. It was small and empty. The only things in it were the musty cot she had woken up on, a candle in the center, and a rusted suit of armor in the corner. She walked to the door and jiggled the knob.
What's going on? Is anybody there?
Octavia felt the rusted metal hinges beneath her hoof. She turned around, closed her eyes, and balanced herself on her forelegs to buck at the door. Her forelegs were immediately pulled out from under her. She yelled as she fell on her stomach. She looked up. The armor looked down on her.
What?
It continued to stare blankly at her, helmet tipped in her direction.
Okay.
Who's in there?
I hope it's not Blueblood.
The armor pointed to the cot. Octavia crawled towards it and climbed back onto the thin sheet.
Hello? I'm Octavia.
The armor put down its raised hoof.
What's your name?
The armor did not move. Octavia began to sob. She heard the armor's hooves clinking and watched it return to the corner where she had first seen it.
Oh god, it's like a sentry.
Why are you keeping me in here?
The pony in the armor did not speak.
Or it's like...
She was not sure how long it was until she heard the rattle of a key in the door. A tall stallion with a swept-back mane and instantly recognizable face entered with a cello in hoof. He placed it on the floor in front of her. He looked up at her.
Play.
You're Prince Blueblood. Did you bring me here? Where am I?
Oh
With
god, we
almost
have one of those
effortless
stories.
grace, Blueblood smacked her across the mouth. She fell back against the cot.
Play.
No. Tell me what's going on. How did I get here?
Blueblood did not answer. He just walked back to the door, looked over his shoulder at her, and shut it behind him. She could hear the rattling of a lock.
I knew that Blueblood's always been a dick, but seriously.
After his hoofsteps had faded away, she skulked to the door and put her ear against it.
The armor.
She looked back. The armor was above her again. She backed away and sat on the cot.
It's definitely some kind of animated
She looked down at the candle.
sentry or something.
It had become a short nub. The wax dripped onto the floor. It burned out, and the armor clanked back over to its corner. She softly cried in the dark.
What is going on here?
And all he wants her to do
She
is
had
play.
been at home. She had gone to bed,
hell?
tired from performing that evening. Vinyl had stayed downstairs for some reason. Octavia's head ached from a lump on the back of it, testament to how she had arrived here with no memory of travel. She closed her eyes, and the ache faded along with the world.
What the hell? Huh. Just messed up. Seriously. And now
Her
hunger
own
settles
growling stomach woke her sometime later. She could not tell how much time had passed.
Hey,
She looked in the general direction of the armor's corner. The pony inside it did not move a muscle. The royal
You don't even
guards
know
had
if there is
competition
a
for
pony inside of
impersonal
that armor.
staidness.
what's your name?
There was only silence.
in. I don't think there's even one
My name's
inside.
Octavia.
Some kind of spell on armor or something.
I guess I already said that.
She waited a few minutes.
Aren't you uncomfortable in that suit?
Another few minutes.
Why am I here?
Nothing.
No, it's a husk.
The door opened.
Oh,
Blueblood entered with a candle and a sandwich.
I
He
don't
placed
like that
both on the
face.
floor and gestured to the cello he had left behind last time.
Play.
No.
Octavia backed against the wall beside the cot.
Play, or you will be punished.
Oh,
Octavia swallowed.
No.
Wordlessly, Blueblood picked the sandwich and the candle up again.
and left.
He left and locked the door behind him.
He's going to starve her. Just so he could... Just
Octavia
until she can
crept to
play
the
for him.
door and pressed her eye against the keyhole.
That's messed up.
She heard a clank. Before she could react, something grabbed her tail and threw her across the room
What?
to land in the cot.
Why are you doing this? Let me out, please.
It clanked back over to the corner.
Why don't you say anything? Can't you speak?
It remained silent.
I want to go home.
Vinyl would be
Aw.
worried sick. The thought made Octavia's muscles bunch. She considered running at the door to shoulder it open, but her
Sorry,
tail and
guys.
back still hurt from being thrown onto the cot.
Won't you please let me out?
She tried one more time. Whoever was guarding her refused to answer.
And apparently stands there forever. I still think it's just
Blueblood
an empty
entered
armor.
many hours later. He
with a
once
spell.
again carried a sandwich and a candle. He set them on the floor and gestured to the cello.
Play.
Is that the
Octavia
only
looked
word
down
you
at
know,
the
Blueblood?
sandwich.
Seriously.
She picked up her cello. He scooted the sandwich closer to her, though not close enough to touch. She played a few notes and then nearly dropped her bow, the whole room suddenly hazy as she became lightheaded.
Pathetic.
I'm too hungry. I need some damn food.
He crossed the short distance between them, pulled the cello from her grasp, and shoved her so hard that she fell back onto the cot.
Dang.
She scrambled to get up, but the point of the cello's stand hovered millimeters from her throat.
Playing badly is the same as not playing at all.
Jesus.
He replaced the cello against the wall, picked up the sandwich and the candle, and left her
Are
in
you
the
serious?
darkness.
Poor Octi.
She ran to the door and slammed herself against it. Splinters scratched at her skin.
No, please don't.
Here comes
Ignoring
the
her
armor.
pleading, the armor picked her up and threw her back on the cot. Desperate and full of adrenaline, she ran for the door again. The armor grabbed her and held her down on the cot.
Let me go.
She struggled against the pony's crushing hold.
Let me go. Let me go. Do you have any compassion? Please, criminal. You gotta hold me. I'm an equestrian citizen.
she managed to get one foreleg free and shoved at the pony's face.
Here it is
The
revealed.
helmet came open.
Yes.
Octavia stared at the rear of the inside of the empty suit of armor. There was no pony within it,
Nope.
only a faintly glowing corona of magic
Exactly.
causing it to
was
move.
a sentry.
Sweet Celestia!
An empty suit of armor powered by magic could not be reasoned with.
No.
It could not be convinced to let her out.
It's a golem,
Octavia
essentially.
went boneless. After a long while, the empty armor let go of her. She did not leap to her hooves again. It returned to its corner, and she lay where it had put her, tears sliding down the sides of her head.
It's pretty dark stuff right here. How will she be able to get out? And how will Blueblood going to get his comeuppance? Like, if the story starts like this, stuff's going to go
Blueblood
down.
entered an indeterminate amount of time later. He placed the sandwich and candle on the floor.
Play.
Octavia
One
picked
track
up the
mind,
cello
that
and
bastard.
bow. Blueblood stared at her movements the entire time. He smiled as she played, then raised a hoof. She stopped on the clear instruction. He smiled even wider.
Because she can
This
follow
time, he
instructions.
left the sandwich and candle behind.
Oh,
She shoved the sandwich into her mouth. She licked the crumbs off the plate. She licked her hooves. She noticed the open door. It was just barely cracked open, but it was open. She began sweating nervously. She looked at the armor in its corner. She looked back at the door.
did he leave
She
it
could
up on
try to
purpose?
make a break for it. She could run pretty fast. She continued to sit on her cot without moving. The armor stayed still. She looked at her cello and
testing her.
remembered Blueblood's smile and the grim nothingness in his eyes when he had put the cello spike to her neck. She looked back at the door. It was shut now. Her tears flowed
It was
like
some
they
kind of
would
messed up
never
test or
stop.
something, I guess. Octi. Where's Vinyl? She needs you. How long has it been? I guess-
Blueblood came the next day.
Oh god.
Good girl.
He said
Oh,
without
that-
explanation.
Those words.
He
Ah,
had
shit.
more candles, a sandwich, and a metal bowl filled with water. He placed them in front of her. Her stomach growled loudly.
Let me guess.
Play.
Exactly.
She took up the cello and began the same tune as yesterday. Blueblood shook his head. She chose something more upbeat. Blueblood nodded.
And the title is Blueblood's Pets. So, does she have other captives in her? Because if so,
He left
good
the
God.
candles and
Or
the
good
food and
Celestia.
water. The armor did not move. Octavia did not cry this time.
Oh no. I hope Stockholm Syndrome
How
won't
long
be a
have I
part of
been
this
here
story.
now?
What?
It was difficult to tell. If she had been a smarter pony, she might have tried making marks on the wall to count the days. But she wasn't smart. She was stupid. She had submitted. She had stopped fighting.
Maybe this is Tartarus. Maybe I died. And this is my eternal punishment.
That would
Yeah.
explain why Blueblood was her tormentor when every media article she had ever seen or read about him described him as an arrogant but foppish fool. Prince Blueblood was a harmless, spoiled, rich brat who had grown into a harmless, spoiled, rich stallion. That kind of pony did not kidnap random mares and hold them in stone cells just to make them play music for him.
Rich ponies go to the symphony. They don't stash musicians away like...
The door opened.
Like pets.
Like always, Blueblood brought her food and water and light. He didn't even need to vocalize his instructions anymore. All he had to do was tap his hoof, and she played for him until he smiled, tapped again to make her stop, and left.
Oh, God. And that's
She
her
had
day-to-day
no more
basis. That's
tears.
horrible.
She just ate the sandwich in slow, steady bites and tried not to look at the ever-watchful armor in the corner.
That's just effed up, man. God, how is she going to get out? I hope there will be some way. But I guess the open door was a kind of a test to, like, would she try to leave, or did she accept her fate? That's what's the test. I
The
would
door
guess.
opened. She looked up for Blueblood, but did not see him.
Oh?
Got another one.
A guard in gleaming
Oh,
golden
they
armor
found her.
yelled over his shoulder.
Another
He
one!
turned and spoke to her softly.
Are you alright, miss?
She pressed herself against the wall, rooted to her cot.
Don't come any closer. The armor! The armor! Watch out for the armor! It'll hurt you!
The guard looked at the armor. It stayed still. He lifted its visor. It didn't try to pin him down or throw him by his tail or anything.
What?
It acted like just a regular suit of armor.
Nothing in there. Let's get you out of here.
No! Can't leave. Can't try to leave. That's when it gets you. That's when it comes alive. Clank, clank.
Oh, she
Now it's
sounds
going
like
to get
she's
me.
insane.
That's all it's here for. To watch me. To make sure I don't try to escape. If I try, it'll hurt me. No, please! It'll kill us!
The guard grabbed
Look at
her
her.
and made for the door. She kept her eyes on the armor as they left the cell, unable to believe that it did not thunder towards them and grab them both to hurl them against
Maybe
the
it's been
wall.
dispelled somehow?
They exited out across a cobbled courtyard that hurt Octavia's sensitive hooves. Sunlight stung her eyes.
Look at her.
Dozens of guards littered
Malnourished
the
as
lawn
hell.
of Blueblood's castle. One was writing in a thick book. The rest were helping emaciated ponies out of the sumptuous building. Ambulance
wasn't the
carts
only
waited
one.
along the road.
What a
The
sick
armor!
bastard.
It doesn't move when you can see it. It'll come after me.
Uh-huh. Redheart, got another one here for you.
She must sound insane to them. But I
She
wonder
was in
why-
the room of a hospital. She was not sure where. She had not asked. She had to keep her eyes open. The armor would follow her. She knew it would.
Oh god.
That's a very nice cutie mark.
The nurse who had helped her wash her straggly, greasy mane set a sandwich down on the bedside tray. She was conversational and sweet, talking all the time in a soft tone that invited trust and confidence.
That's
She was
nice.
making small talk. All the nurses tending the ponies from Blueblood's mansion were making small talk.
What do you play?
Play. Play. Play.
Oh god.
Octavia began pantomiming
Become
playing
a
her cello,
trigger word.
movements a blur as she instinctively sought to render that special smile from the pony in front of her. No, she was free, she was out. She didn't have to do this anymore. Yet she could not stop. Her body would not let her. The nurse lunged for her flailing hooves, trying to make her stop.
Oh god.
Doctor, come quick!
Oh god. I am wrong. This is the messed up part. Oh god. Oh, that's horrible. That's just pure horrible. Oh god, of course this would be the Halloween special. Oh god.
Prince Blueblood walked through the gardens of Pants Manor.
Excuse me,
He
how
did
isn't
not
that guy
care
in,
for the
in
bright
behind
fauna
jail?
or give a damn that the buzzards really buzzed. He was here for one reason: to watch his cousin make a fool of himself. Fancy Pants led a small puppy on a leash. The animal slobbered and ran through his legs in figure eights. Fancy Pants fell down after becoming entangled in the leash.
That's not how you handle a dog.
Blueblood commented and untangled the leash.
You have to be in control of him constantly.
I've seen how you handle animals. Some might say it's borderline abusive.
Fancy Pants dusted off his black tailcoat.
And those ponies would be wrong. I'm simply firm with creatures beneath us.
Blueblood snorted and took the leash from Fancy.
I really don't like
You have to keep the leash short at first.
He wrapped a good length of it around his hoof.
Keep your orders simple and your tone firm.
He looked down at the dog.
Woof.
The dog now panted beside Blueblood's right foreleg.
I'll never understand why he obeys you so quickly. You have a way with animals.
Fancy Pants complimented.
It's easy.
Blueblood kept the leash tight around his hoof.
Do you have any treats for him?
Fancy Pants gave Blueblood a small, crumbly bone.
Sit.
Blueblood commanded. He placed the treat on the dog's nose.
Take.
Quite impressive. Now, if only we could keep him from piddling on the carpet.
That's easy too. Punish him as soon as it happens. He needs to associate pain with actions you don't want from him. He'll soon learn to obey.
I think we'll just keep with the crate training.
That is what the
If you think
abusive
that's
things
best.
comes in.
Blueblood handed the leash back to Fancy.
And how is he still
Can I
walking
expect
around?
to see you at tonight's symphony?
Always. Do you still have your seats in the founder's box?
Yes, of course.
Fancy lifted his
Or-
hooves to prevent them
This
from
is
being
before.
tangled in the leash.
The Grand Canterlot Orchestra has been quite good to me in that regard.
Blueblood pulled a pocket watch out of his vest.
Good. Good. I'd best be off, though. I have some things to take care of before then. I'm sorry for any inconvenience.
Quite all right. I'll see you tonight.
Either this is before or somehow after.
Blueblood stared down at his pocket watch.
Late.
He muttered.
Fancy is never late. This is most inconsiderate.
He tapped his hooves on the gold railing that surrounded the balcony. The orchestra was beginning to assemble, each musician tuning his or her instrument.
Fleur?
Blueblood turned to the mare a few seats to his right. She barely ever spoke to him. It was very irritating.
Did Fancy Pants say if he had anything to take care of?
Fleur shook her head. Blueblood let out a harumph and continued clicking his hooves on the rails.
I wonder what
My
happened.
most sincere apologies.
there he is.
Fancy Pants entered through the archway and
I've
took
always
his
thought
seat
Fleur was
beside
very
Fleur, exchanging the usual kissed cheeks she insisted upon in some sort of ridiculous French cultural throwback.
My carriage
French.
was running late, and while I was alighting from it, I happened to meet some pony who wanted to view the symphony as well.
I thought I could find a scalper.
I know!
A mare Blueblood did not know sat down between himself and Fancy like she actually had any place there. Her electric blue mane was an eyesore, and she was wearing sunglasses indoors.
Guess it's final.
Blueblood stared in dismayed horror at what his cousin had put amongst them.
I couldn't get a ticket in time, but I figured,
Put amongst them.
no biggie. There's always a scalper.
I hate
Vinyl,
those
blue
kind of
blood,
people.
blue blood, vinyl. Vinyl, Fleur, Fleur, vinyl.
Fancy Pants introduced them.
A scalper?
Blueblood's upper lip curled.
You seem used to a different kind of concert.
Yeah, I don't normally go to these kinds of things, but see that mare in the cello? I promised her I'd show up if Vital Scratch doesn't break promises.
Ah,
Nice.
Blueblood nodded, looking down at the soft gray mare Vinyl pointed at. She sat demurely in her seat, awaiting the conductor's signal to begin. He narrowed his eyes in thought.
I actually think I've seen her before.
She plays at all sorts of fancy gigs. You've probably seen her at one of those. She was at the Grand Galloping Gala.
Ah, yes, though I can't quite remember.
Sorry
her
if I'm not
name.
saying much. I'm just taking it all in.
Blueblood flicked through the program.
Octavia Melody?
Yeah, she really likes this new gig.
Vinyl took off her
I gotta say
revolting
that-
sunglasses.
We're thinking about getting a new place with extra money.
Is there something wrong with your current residence?
Blueblood picked a stray thread from his smoking jacket.
It is way too close to the train station. It's big enough, but the noise wakes us up at all hours.
I see. I have a friend who's a realtor. If you'd like, I can give him your address, and he can add you to his mailing list. Fancy, do you have a pen?
Of course.
So why
Fancy
is
Pants
Blueblood
pulled a
helping
fountain
them
pen
now?
from his jacket and floated it to
right.
Vinyl.
Thanks.
Vinyl scribbled her address on the back of her program, passed it to Blueblood, and
so
gave
he
the
can
pen
pay
back
her
to
a
Fancy.
visit later.
Thanks, Fancy.
she said with
Sneaky
entirely too
bastard.
much familiarity.
You're welcome.
I don't like
But
Blueblood.
quiet
I
now,
don't know if that's
everyone.
clear enough
Fancy
yet.
Pants whispered.
Panofsky has arrived.
Panofsky. Jeez. Hey, Octavia.
Throughout the
I always
performance,
thought she was so
Blueblood
pretty.
watched the soft gray mare draw her bow across the strings of her cello.
I love music. I wonder if... What if this is a score they pulled in from somewhere? It would be amazing if it was an original thing, but... I don't know. I frankly don't know that much classical music.
Blueblood walked quietly across the marble floors of his chateau.
Alright.
He reached into a
I wonder
box
how
in the hardwood
many
wall.
he captured.
A light bell rang.
That's a long bell.
A servant stepped out of a false wall and bowed low.
Wow.
Blueblood
False
handed him the
walls.
program with the childish scrawl on it.
Go here. I want the grey mare. Be careful, she does not live alone. Don't leave anything that can be traced back to you.
The servant nodded, snapped his soft white cloth boots in place, and left. Blueblood reached
hell?
into the small box and pulled another lever. Another servant stepped out of the false wall.
Make up the rations for tonight. No water tonight for 3B, no candle for it either.
The servant bowed and stepped back into the false wall.
How are these ponies able to work with this guy? Seriously.
Blueblood walked down the stone steps to the wine cellar. At the bottom, he removed the rough stones from one far wall and stepped into an unlit tunnel. He waited until the servant arrived with a gurney covered in sandwiches, bowls of water, and candles.
Oh god, who is this
Leave
one?
now. I'll do the rest.
He pulled a keyring out of his coat pocket and unlocked one of the many doors in the tunnel. He raised up a sandwich, a bowl of water, and a candle. He opened the door and stepped into the poorly lit room with a piano in the corner. An emaciated stallion stirred and looked up at him. Blueblood gestured to the piano, tapped his hoof, and the stallion rushed to it.
So he captures symphony players and makes them play for him.
He played for
He's
30 minutes
sick.
until Blueblood tapped his hoof again. He set the provisions down on the stone floor and left. The stallion ate greedily as Blueblood locked the door
Half of my
behind
commentary
him.
here is just me saying in different ways of how much I dislike this guy. Seriously. They did a good job of just making him into the
He unlocked the door with
biggest prick.
3B carved into it, not hopeful of what he would find within. He stepped into the room and looked at the filthy pink mare asleep in the corner.
What?
Blueblood stomped his hoof, causing her to stir. She looked up at him rebelliously, refusing to stand.
Pink mare?
Play.
He vocalized what he wanted from this one, also gesturing to the violin beside her.
No.
She answered weakly. Blueblood smacked her
Jesus!
across the face, adding to the many bruises already there.
Play.
She glared up at him and slammed her hoof down on the violin, breaking its neck.
Damn.
No.
Someone fought
Blueblood
back.
sighed. He pulled a length of cord from his jacket and approached her. She backed into the corner, green eyes wide. Apparently, she had not gotten the message that disobedience brought punishment.
No, you can't do that.
He looped the cord around her neck
Oh
and
my
pulled
God!
in opposite directions. She sputtered beneath him and coughed in his face. He pulled tighter and watched her eyes slide back, the lids blinking randomly. She kicked underneath him, movements growing weaker
my
until
God!
she stopped moving completely. He held on for a while longer before dropping the useless carcass to the
Shut up.
floor. He pocketed his cord and walked out of the room, not bothering to lock it. He stepped into another room. A griffin stirred in the corner and looked up at him. He grabbed his bassoon off the wall and played a long tune. Blueblood smiled and set a sandwich on his beak.
Take.
The griffin snapped it up immediately.
He treats the griffin the same way he treats the dog?
He raised his bassoon
Fuck
again.
you, Blueblood!
No.
Blueblood stated and walked out the door. His servant was waiting for him with a large sack thrown over his back.
Very quick. I'm pleased with you. Were you spotted?
The servant shook his head.
Octavia.
Good. Place her in 3B. Please dispose of the garbage in there while you're at it.
Oh good, throw Octavia into the cell where you just murdered some pony! AJ, I may need you for a bit more.
It's so good of you to have us over for tea, Blueblood.
Fancy Pants said cheerily.
Fleur and I greatly appreciate it.
Think nothing of it. As often as you invite me to the
I may need
symphony,
you
it
later.
would not reflect well on me to be inhospitable.
Blueblood smiled. Fleur whispered into Fancy's ear.
I'm sorry, but Fleur would like to know where the water closet is. I'm not entirely sure where it is. I apologize.
It's quite all right, though she could ask me herself.
Blueblood rang a bell. A silent servant appeared.
Mr. Hoof, would you please show Fleur to the restroom?
The servant, Mr. Hoof, nodded and Fleur followed him out.
And
Thank
she
you,
was
Blueblood.
never seen again?
Fancy Pants sipped his tea.
Speaking of the symphony, will you be joining us tonight? It has been a few months since you last graced them with your presence.
Well,
Don't
I
say
suppose
things
I
like
should
that.
let the lesser folk admire me. But it will have to be some other time. I'm scheduled to be groomed tonight. I'm overdue for a hoofacure.
Blueblood laughed.
I understand.
Fancy Pants laughed as well.
We can't have our prince looking like he just came off the street.
Quite right. I don't care what anyone says. I am judged harder for my appearance than anyone else in this city.
What about the princesses? They're in the public eye more than anyone else.
Yes, but their manes seem to be made of magic.
Blueblood debated and then spoke with a higher pitch.
Oh, I'll just brush my mane. Wait, it's already done. Yay! Magic.
Fancy Pants accidentally choked on
So
his
he's
tea,
jealous of the
emitting a
princesses?
combination of a chuckle and cough.
That is most inappropriate.
Yes, but I can't make you laugh otherwise.
Fleur trotted back into the room and whispered into Fancy's ear.
She looks
Oh,
shocked.
I'm sorry, but Fleur is not feeling well. I'm afraid we'll have to cut this social gathering short. Again, my apologies.
All is forgiven.
Blueblood replied mildly.
Until next time.
While staring at Fleur with the daggers of a freaking lunatic. Oh. The most horrible thing is that things like this has happened.
Blueblood rang the bell,
And
but
it's
no
just-
pony came. He looked around and threw the bell into the unopened secret passage in the wall. A passing servant picked it off the ground and trotted to Blueblood's side.
Where is Mr. Hoof?
The servant shook her head.
Then find him.
Oh, this must be where the police found him.
They found him quickly. Mr. Hoof lay in the wine cellar next to the open tunnel. A smashed bottle lay in a puddle of spreading wine and blood beside him.
Oh god.
This is not good.
Blueblood snarled and looked to the 12 servants who had gathered at his shouts.
Oh, someone must have escaped.
Dispose of the evidence quickly.
The servants looked to each other.
Now!
They scattered.
Again, how are they able to
Too
work
late.
with this guy? Seriously. Whoa!
The door into the wine cellar burst open. 6 guards in gleaming gold armor rushed into the cellar.
Jeez.
Blueblood looked at the spear pointed right in his face.
Can I help you?
His voice remained mild,
He says
as
while
if this
standing
was
next to
no
a
matter
body.
worth bothering about.
You can place your hooves behind your head and your muzzle to the ground.
The guard suggested.
Or you could resist and make this fun for everyone involved.
Blueblood chose the first option.
So I guess someone escaped, killed Mr. Hoof, and then got the guard ponies.
How many, sir?
I want to make a
Fancy
joke,
Pants
but
asked,
this,
watching as a
no.
babbling gray mare was loaded into an ambulance. He recognized her from the symphony. Now her sudden absence from the orchestra made more sense. His heart clenched.
23. and there's no telling how many he disposed of.
Are the Chateau staff surrendering any information?
Nothing. They can't. They're all mute.
Octavia in the background.
The guard's laugh was mirthless.
It's funny. Blueblood was actually given a plaque for hiring disabled ponies.
Can they write?
Only some. And just barely.
He
We
hired
found
them
one that
because
can
they're
write
easier
basic
to
stuff,
control.
but I can't tell you what he told us.
Fancy Pants slid a jingling bag to the guard.
Our young prince has kidnapped at least 40 creatures over these years. All of them talented musicians, professionals for the most part. They are from all over Equestria and beyond. One of those recovered today was a griffin, actually an up-and-coming bassoonist who went missing, apparently after a lover's tiff with his partner 3 years ago. We can't interview any of them until the departmental shrink checks them out. Near as we can tell, it looks like it started about 10 years back, but most of those cases were dismissed as robbery. He would have a servant kidnap a pony, make it look like they stole from those they lived with, and disappeared.
And what will happen to Blueblood now?
Fancy Pants slid another bag to the guard.
The same thing that happens to any criminal.
The guard slid the bag
prison.
back to Fancy.
Trial and imprisonment.
Jesus. 10 years! He's been kidnapping about 40 creatures for 10 years! Fucking hell, and I think
in
the
my
reason why he hired disabled...
Why is it in my apartment? Did it follow me? Why can no pony else see
Oh
it?
no, she's having
I
PTSD.
think it's all in my head. But it's grabbed me before. It's hurt me before. Does it want to hurt me now? I can't
Something
tell.
like that.
It just sits there in the corner watching me, waiting for me to try to escape. That's what it does. It keeps me prisoner. I can't break eye contact with it. I have to watch it constantly. It moves when you can't see it.
Oh, Vinyl, where are
Clanks
you?
around at night.
She needs a hug so badly.
Watches. It watches me, and it waits.
Tavy?
Oh,
Vinyl entered the living room.
What's wrong? What are you looking at?
It moves.
Octavia refused to break eye contact with the empty corner.
But only when you can't see it. That's when it moves.
When what moves?
The armor.
Tavy,
Vinyl doesn't know.
look at me. There's nothing there.
Vinyl embraced her.
It's only me and you in here. No pony else.
Okay, she
That
does
corner
know.
is empty. There's nothing there.
Octavia looked back at the corner.
It's not there?
Right.
Vinyl smiled.
You're safe now. You're home.
It must have moved!
Octavia screamed.
It moves! It moves! It's enchanted! Enchanted to keep me inside the cell!
Tavy, calm down. Please.
Vinyl? What are you doing here?
Octavia looked around.
I'm not in the cell.
No, you're not. You're home. With me. Safe at home with me. Did you take your medicine today?
Medicine? No! No, I can't take the medicine. If I take the medicine, then I can't see it. And that means it could be anywhere. He magicked it to watch me. I'm his property, and he protects his property. Unless his property does something stupid like try to escape. Then he hurts it.
Octavia.
He hurts.
It's not real. Please, Tavy.
This
Sit
is
down.
horrible.
Vinyl. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, love. Come on. Sit down and I'll fetch your meds.
She led Octavia over to the love seat and guided
Oh,
her into a
God.
seated position.
I'm going to get you some water so you can take your pills. Do you know where you left your medicine?
No, I don't remember.
Octavia leaned
It's like
back.
Octavia knows
Vinyl backed
that
into
it's
the
all in her
kitchen
head,
and
but...
rummaged through the cabinets.
Oh god.
She
it's
finally
horrible.
found an orange, translucent bottle and shook out 2 pills. She filled a chipped mug with water.
A chipped mug.
A crash echoed, and the shattering of glass resounded throughout the apartment.
Tavy!
She flung the mug into the sink and galloped into the living room. Octavia struggled on the floor, her back on their shattered glass coffee table as if she had been thrown on top of it, or launched herself from a standing position on the love seat.
It's here! It's here! It's here! It's here! It's here! It's here!
Good God.
Vinyl is here! It's here! It's come for me! It came for me! The altar came, please! Put me back! 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 It's here! It's here! It's here!
Oh, don't end on this! Don't you dare end on this frame! Yo! You didn't just end it right there, did you? Please.
Vinyl waited
Oh,
in the
God.
hospital, seated on a double-stuffed wingback chair in a tiny waiting room.
Fucking awful.
She pulled loose threads from a tear in the cushion and frowned to herself.
Excuse me.
Fancy Pants entered.
Oh, God.
I just got the news from a colleague of mine. Is Miss Octavia all right?
She'll be okay.
Vinyl muttered.
She kept grabbing at the broken glass. They were able to take care of it with some dermabond. You know, the superglue-like stuff. The doctors are talking to her to make sure it wasn't a domestic dispute. Like I would ever hurt Tavy.
No.
She looked away, frown deepening into a scowl.
May I ask what happened?
Fancy sat down in a stool across from her. His refined self looked ridiculous in the ratty waiting room decor.
No.
Vinyl sobbed, squeezing her eyes shut.
Sorry, I'm just real emotional right now.
No kidding.
Understandable. You've been through a lot too. Are you all right?
I guess.
Vinyl slumped in her chair.
This is just all my fault. If I had just bought a ticket, then I wouldn't have sat beside Blueblood. I wouldn't have drawn his attention to her.
You mustn't blame yourself for this. The fault is Blueblood's, and I'm doing my best to ensure that the rest of his life will be in prison.
Is that why you're here? Is this about the trial?
I do want to speak to Miss Octavia on the matter, but not here. This would be a most inappropriate place for it.
Yeah.
We'll have to meet sometime then.
Vinyl tore a page from a magazine.
But not at my apartment. I don't give out our address anymore.
That's understandable.
Understandable.
Fancy pulled a fountain pen from his breast pocket.
What would you say to that quaint cafe on Cherry Street?
We can't afford to eat out right now. Octavia's medicine costs a lot, and now I have this ER bill to pay, and the rent's due in a week.
Vinyl pressed her face into her hooves.
I kinda haven't worked since Tavy came home. I didn't want to leave her alone, but I need to work because I'm a... what's the word? Breadwinner? Yeah, that's it. I'm the breadwinner of our household now, so I...
How much?
Fancy pulled out a checkbook.
Thank you, Fancy. Thank
Huh?
you.
Vinyl looked at him, confused.
How much is your rent?
She frowned.
I can't let you do that, Fancy. I don't know when we could pay you back.
It's not a loan. I give gifts, not loans. Now, how much is your rent?
900 bits.
Vinyl confided.
All right.
Fancy scribbled on the check and tore it out of the book.
I have some litigation in the works. The idea is to auction off all of Blueblood's assets and have the proceeds go to the families of those who had suffered because of him. This should be enough to last you until the litigation is finalized.
Thank you.
Vinyl accepted
you,
the
Fancy
check,
Pants.
eyes
Again,
rounding so
the
much
best-
she wished she still
the
had
best
her
high-class
shades
unicorn
on
in
to
Cancel
hide
Off.
her surprise.
This is more than 900.
I know.
Vinyl looked up at him.
So, where did you want to meet again?
I need a quick minute. Okay, I'm back. It's not because it's making me like nauseate or anything like that. It's just wow for a story. This is hard. This is messed up. It's just a lot of things to take in. All right, let's continue. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see how the rest of this is going
A
to
day
go.
latte was as fine as a cafe could be without becoming gaudy. It was perhaps the first upmarket cafe in which Octavia and Vinyl both felt comfortable.
Oh, that's nice.
Fancy Pants smiled. Being able to pick a locale that didn't offend any guest's sensibilities was the mark of a good host.
Hey.
How are you, Miss Octavia?
Fancy Pants slid into his chair. Showing up late was not normal for him, but in this case he understood that allowing his guests time to talk alone was important.
Yeah.
It was another mark of a good host.
Make them more comfortable.
I'm fine.
Oh, Vinyl.
Octavia rubbed her bandaged forelegs.
The doctors have switched my medicines around. It seems to be helping somewhat.
Alright, so you gave the right
Wonderful.
medicine this time.
Fancy Pants waved Fleur over.
Maybe the
It
other
would not
medicine,
have been
like, worsens her
appropriate for him to
situation?
meet two young mares by himself. He wouldn't allow rumors to spread about his guests. Another mark of a thoughtful host.
And you, Miss Scratch?
I'm doing okay.
Vinyl's posture slid her ever so slightly closer towards Octavia. Fleur stepped over to Octavia and hugged her, kissing both sides of her face.
Aw.
She then embraced Vinyl, kissing both sides of her face. Vinyl blushed.
Oh, it's a blush. I thought it was like
pretty,
tired
Miss
lines,
Dillis,
like she
but-
hasn't slept.
I'm taken.
That's just how Fleur greets ponies, I assure you.
Oh.
Octavia kissed both of Fleur's cheeks in return. Vinyl frowned.
Sorry, but no. The only pony I kiss is Tavy.
Octavia's eyes rounded.
Sorry.
She pressed her hooves to the sides of her head, posture suffused with sudden panic.
Stupid.
No, it's okay, love.
Vinyl prized the hooves away
her
and held them
love.
gently in her own.
You're not stupid.
But
Tavy, remember what I said? You're allowed to do what you want.
Exactly.
No pony will punish you for making your own decisions.
No.
And definitely not me. Okay?
Okay.
Please, have a seat, my dear.
God,
Fancy
the
Pants
mental
gestured
scars.
Fleur to a stool beside him.
They will stay there for a
Now,
long
Miss
time, if
Octavia,
not the rest
I
of her
wanted
life.
to make a request.
I'll do it.
Octavia interrupted.
Yikes.
You wish for me to speak at the trial, correct?
Oh, well, yes. But only if you're comfortable with it.
I'll never be comfortable with that monster, but I understand that none of the other musicians wish to speak either. A conviction would be much easier if at least one of us speaks.
That's quite noble of you. Miss Scratch, would you be willing to speak as well?
Vinyl nodded.
Very well.
Fancy drew himself up. He had not expected that part of the conversation to happen so soon or swiftly.
Yeah.
I don't recommend any sandwiches from here, but the pastries are quite nice.
Okay, I was kind of half afraid that sandwiches had also become of like a trigger thing for that scarring. God. Trial time.
Vinyl took the witness stand. Blueblood glared at her from his table in the courtroom. She returned his glare tenfold.
State your name and occupation, please.
The prosecutor requested.
Vinyl Scratch, I'm a freelancing DJ.
How do you know the defendant?
I didn't know him until 3 months ago. I wanted to attend the symphony to watch Octavia play, but I couldn't get a ticket in time. Fancy Pants and I met outside of the concert hall. He offered to let me sit in the founder's box after he heard I wouldn't get to see my mare friend play otherwise.
Please, continue.
I met Blueblood there. He seemed okay at the time. I pointed out Octavia to him and told him how happy she was to be playing for the Candlelight Symphony. I mentioned in conversation that we were looking for a new apartment. He told me that he knew a realtor and asked for our address. I gave it to him.
She didn't manage to hold back her wince.
I told him where we lived.
What happened when you got home that night?
Octavia got home just a little after I did. I wanted to go to a bar. I wanted to support her when she was performing, but I find the symphony dull and wanted to let off some steam. She said she was tired and going to bed. I went out, she stayed in. When I got home, our apartment was trashed and Octavia wasn't there.
He had taken Octavia so easily because she wasn't there to stop him. Even though it was irrational, even though there was no way she could have known how that night would end, she would never forgive herself for that. The questions seemed to go on and on from both the prosecution and the defense, but eventually the judge spoke.
Thank you, Miss Scratch. You may now step down from the witness stand.
Octavia was on the stand next.
Oh boy, here we go.
I can do this. I can.
Blueblood smiled at her. She refused to look at him. Vinyl was doing enough glaring for both of them.
I'm keeping my middle fingers down for a
She
reason.
stated her name as requested.
Can you tell us about the event that occurred 3 months ago?
Yes.
3 months.
I was playing at this.
Blueblood tapped his hoof on the desk. Octavia fell immediately silent.
Please, continue.
The prosecutor urged. She cleared her throat.
I was playing at the symphony. It was my first real job in quite a while, and I was ecstatic about it. But I was quite tired when I got home. Vinyl tried to get me to go out with her for the night, but again, I was quite tired. Shortly after she left for the bar...
Blueblood tapped his hoof on the desk again.
Someone strap his hooves or something.
Mouth snapped shut. She felt her forelegs twitching against her will as they tried to drag an imaginary bow across imaginary cello strings.
Objection, Your Honor. The defendant is badgering the witness.
Exactly!
Prince Blueblood, if you do not cease your ill-advised actions, I will be forced to...
I can't do this.
Octavia scrambled out of the witness stand and galloped
Is
through
that
the
enough
courtroom
evidence?
for the exit.
Seriously!
I'm sorry, I can't. Davy, wait!
Vinyl called after her, but Octavia did
Isn't
not
that
listen.
enough proof?
Blueblood smiled.
That would be proof enough, wouldn't it? Seriously, controlling her in court with freaking tapping and freaking... Oh.
Vinyl knocked on the door to her room. Silence.
Tavy, can I come in?
Still silence.
I'm coming in. Don't throw anything, okay? I'm not...
Not the armor? Not him? Octavia wasn't sure what Vinyl had been about to say. None of the options that presented themselves were palatable ones. Vinyl opened the door and saw Octavia sitting on her bed, rolling a candle around in her hooves.
Hi.
Hey.
Vinyl sat down beside her.
Sorry about today.
It's fine.
No, it's not.
Octavia said fiercely.
It's not fine.
It was the first time you've seen him since it happened.
I thought that I could handle it.
She clenched the candle tightly.
All he had to do was tap on that table, Vinyl. Just tap on the bloody table. And he had me again. I couldn't resist.
He held you for 4 months, Tavy. He messed with your head. Taking the witness stand like that with him in the same room was always a gamble.
I thought I was getting better.
Octavia sounded like she was ready to cry.
But all he had to do was tap on the table. And suddenly none of the therapy sessions, none of the pills, none of it mattered. I was back there in that room.
Vinyl bit her lip.
You've never really told me what happened when after he kidnapped you. I mean, you told me about the armor, but you were always a bit,
Round the twist when I talked about it.
Octavia said flatly.
Damaged. A lot of what you said didn't make sense. I didn't know what was real and what was delusional. I never pushed because I'd figured you'd talk to me about it when you were ready. As long as you talked to the doctors about it, that seemed more important.
She paused.
Do you want to talk to me about it now?
I am terrified. I know that this isn't real now, but it's still in the corner. It can clank away all at once, but that doesn't make it any more real. I refuse to be scared of it now, because I saw a real monster today.
Yeah.
I don't think that something hallucinatory can ever terrify me again, but that monster, the demon with the fancy lapels, he is terrifying.
Yeah.
But Vinyl is here. I'm lucky to have her. She's put up with so much of my ridiculousness. I don't know what I'd do without her. No. No pony's coming to save me. No pony wants me, otherwise they would have found me by now. No pony wants me except him. He owns me.
Octavia,
Vinyl put a hoof on Octavia's own.
it's okay if you don't want to talk about it. I'll still be here when you're ready. I'm not going anywhere.
Vinyl had never gone anywhere.
wants you.
While others of Blueblood's victims had gone home to find their families and friends had thought ill of them for stealing from them before running away, Vinyl had never believed that of Octavia.
Serious?
She had searched for her. She had never given up hope that Octavia would come back to her. She had even, in a last desperate attempt, gone to see a rich, connected stallion she had met only once to ask him to help her look for the love of her life, who had gone missing the night they met to watch her play. Vinyl loved her. She could trust Vinyl.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Octavia set down the broken candle, its two sides dangling on either end of a long wick.
But I think I need to.
Vinyl did not smile, but she sat and listened without judgment as Octavia began to talk.
Jesus. That's how it ends. Ah, look where you are.
Blueblood sat at the rough table in the prison cafeteria. He was surrounded by a wide variety of unpleasant types, most of them considerably bigger than him. They smelled bad too. Body odor was rank in the air. His last hoofacure seemed a lifetime ago. A large earth pony placed an untrimmed, unwashed hoof on the back of Blueblood's mane, stroking it roughly. Blueblood looked up at the towering stallion in the orange jumpsuit.
You're a pretty boy, ain't you?
Oh,
He
dear.
leered over Blueblood, clearly asking a question of a rhetorical variety. Blueblood was not intended to have any say in the matter.
Wanna spend a night with me?
Blueblood rammed a hoof between the stallion's eyes.
Jesus!
He jumped on the large pony's back and tore out a section of the prisoner's mane, looping it around his neck.
Oh, God!
Beg.
Blueblood ordered and pulled tight.
God damn! Oh. Oh, sickness. You did a good job. Oh, it was for Thornquill. I couldn't even recognize him. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh. Great arts. All around. Great arts. I think I saw Panda talking about her art with you. That picture! Jesus. There were so many amazing pictures in this production. Seriously. God. Oh, that frame. What a freaking story. I can clearly see why this was the Halloween special. Oh God, that frame. I seriously feared for a moment that it would end it on that. Oh, Party Blossom, you even drew it for this. And Cloudy. Oh, of course, I should have recognized her art. Oh, God. Oh, that was a picture I saw on Twitter. It's just like, I can already tell This is gonna be bad. Happy Nightmare Night indeed. Oh, goodness. Thanks to these awesome patrons. Yeah, patrons. Jesus. Can't even talk. Oh! What a beautiful picture to edit on. Freaking vomiting up feathers. Guess there's another GRIMDARK story. Oh dear. Guess that's it. That's it. Okay. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh. I knew this was going to be, well, dark. Month of Macabre. It even says GRIMDARK in the title and all that, but Jesus. Oh. That was a lot. That was a freaking lot. So yeah. The story itself, it's about as dark as you can go with a concept like this. Oh God, I just feel so freaking bad for Octi. I can't possibly begin to imagine what she must have gone through, both during and after. She keeps seeing the armor, and she's so mentally scarred that she like still is affected by Blueblood and his tapping. And yeah, I think that in the trial just was enough for Blueblood to be thrown into prison. I think the worst part of all of this is that he doesn't seem fazed by any of it. In courts, in the prison, he wasn't fazed by all of this at all. I guess that shows what kind of person he is, what kind of pony he is. No matter what situation he is in, he will try and have control. And like in the trial, he tried to have his control over Octavia by tapping and activating that switch. In prison, he freaking began strangling an inmate and telling him to beg. Like, oh God, like we all know what that inmate was insinuating. We all know what he was talking about. But Jesus. Oh dear. Yeah, that was an experience. I know I didn't talk for a lot of it, but it was just because that there were some situations where I didn't think that it was fit for me to say anything or even try to make a joke. There were situations where I had one in mind, but it's just like, no. That would, to me, that would, I think, like, I would just feel like I would be insulting the story and the people behind it. And the performances all around are great. Freaking Scribbler as Octavia is just... freaking hell, I wanna hug you. I wanna hug Octavia. I just wanna, oh God. And all those other poor ponies that he had kept captured, and creatures in general, like he treated the normal ponies like dirt. He treated a griffin like a dog. That is so messed up on so many freaking levels, and just so many layers, and oh God. This was one hell of a story. And I hope that those of you who have watched me this, and Scribbler, if you are watching this, that I delivered a good, that I gave a good performance. Oh God. Why am I suddenly drawing parallels? This is nothing like it. Oh God. So, as always, thank you all for watching, my dear friends. Please tell me in the comments below what you thought about this video, my reaction, and just everything in general. Please tell me both positive and negative, so I can use it all to grow and evolve into a better entertainer for you guys. And especially a big thank you to all of the amazing people over on my Patreon who keeps helping me and donating and everything. You guys are freaking amazing. But yeah, as always, my dear friends, thank you all so very much for watching. My name is JohnnyFerno, and I will see you next time, where we'll hear about a tale of a certain lost person. See you guys next time.